Welcome back, everybody, to the A Little Less Here podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lino Martinez. So, I've taken some time off from podcasting the last 3 weeks because I lost my brother due after a long battle of cancer, battling with cancer for 3 years, actually. And even as I talk about this right now, and though I've been podcasting for 3 years, and although I have over 240 episodes out, even talking about this right now, my heart rate is accelerated. My emotions have been running high, and it isn't the easiest thing to talk about. And I felt it was very pertinent to talk about him and um, and be open and raw and authentic about it because of the love that I shared with my brother. And not only the love that I shared with my brother, but the love that so many people shared with my brother. And the least I can do is an episode about him. He motivated me throughout my life. He encouraged me. He supported me. He was my warrior. He was my hero. And there's just so much to say about my brother. So for those that don't know my brother, his name is Ezekiel Martinez Jr. And he will always be remembered for being an incredible writer, an incredible filmmaker. He wrote the first two Pirates of the Caribbean, and one of his major characters was, I'm sorry, him and his partner Lee Alfred II, of course, Holla to Lee, which is one of his besties, and I love that guy as well. I love all my brother's friends actually, and all of them coming together right now and coming forth to guide me also and support me through this. It's like brotherhood coming together, and it's really beautiful. But one of my brother's main characters was Captain Jack Sparrow, A Pirate's Life for Me. And that is the title of this podcast episode because that was my brother's theme. Pirate ships and and drunken pirates and comedy and fun and creativity and spontaneity. The incredible fascinating mind of my brother was one of which will always intrigue me. And one thing that I can say about him is that I mean, I can say a million things about him, but the thing that's coming to me right now is that my brother lived to write movies. My brother lived to make sure that his writing was seen in motion pictures, his characters come to life, and that people would feel his characters. And I often remember when he was writing scripts that he would tell me, I put myself in the eyes of the audience. What does the audience want to see? What do they want to hear? And he would write endlessly. I mean, he would get an idea and within a day or two, he already have a synopsis or half a script and write 100 pages in like 2 or 3 days and send me the final draft, sometimes overnight. And it was really incredible how he could just write scripts after scripts after scripts. And I mean, there's so many writers out there that take years, decades to write another script, but he just kept going. It was in him, it was a fire, and he was ignited by his passion, daily motivated. And that was his only dream in his life, was to make movies. There was no plan B. His plan A was his only plan, and he carried it all the way through to the end. And that is one of the biggest motivating forces for me, is to take with me and part of this great loss that I have. The biggest thing that I'm taking with me is to keep going and to be true to the things that I'm passionate about, the things that I want to do, how I want to be, how I want to represent my passions and my internal flame that's ever burning within me. His desires became realities, and that's because he believed in it so much. He didn't ever look at dollar signs or seeing the luxuries that he could have if he made a big movie or a big motion picture. To him, it wasn't about that. To him, it was about, I have a story and it's in my mind and I'm going to write it out and it's going to be a movie. And that was it. And I just love that he just carried it through all the way to the end. My brother Ezekiel Martinez Jr., the writer, the filmmaker, the creator, and the funny, funny guy. Also had some struggles growing up through the life. I mean, we all have struggles that we faced. And but before the struggles, let me tell you something a little bit about our childhood. So my brother was a fourth degree black belt, but prior to getting his fourth degree black belt, he was also very passionate about the martial arts, and I followed him. You know, as his sibling, I wanted to be like him always since I was a kid. And even in being a little kid, 5, 6, 7 years old, I would sneak into his closet and try on his clothes and try to stand like him, and I probably try to act like him. And when he joined martial arts, he was about 14 or maybe younger, actually. He was about 12, and we were 4 years apart. So I was about 8. And I wanted to join the martial arts so bad. But my parents didn't let me. They said I was gonna get hurt because I was younger. But I saw how passionate my brother was, practicing in the garage, hitting the punching bags, obsessed with Bruce Lee and Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal. And he would just practice and practice and practice. And he was just eager to be so good in martial arts that he excelled. Everything that he did, he excelled in. And so when my parents finally allowed me to go into martial arts, my brother trained me. We would train in the garage, and he would put sparring gear on me. He would kick my butt, and there's no crying. I would get back up, and he would say, "Do it again, do it again, do it again." And it was the practice that made perfect. And he always said, "Well, it's not practice that makes perfect. It's perfect practice that makes perfect." But that was his mentality, and his mentality is that perfection was consistency. And if you're not consistent, you're not going to reach a level of perfection that you have for yourself. So I don't know, that those were his words to me that I remember. I personally don't believe that there's a true definition to perfection, because we're always going to be seeking it. But for my brother, his perfection was passion, and to just keep following it consistently. And that's really what perfection meant to him. And so my brother won about 7 or 8 gold medals in the Junior Olympics in martial arts. He was just this constant gold medalist. And I remember the first couple tournaments I went to, I got like third place, second place. But the last Junior Olympics I had gone to in my teens, I was about 14 at this time, and my brother was 18. And my brother at this time was a second or first or second degree black belt. And I tell this story because it's a story that will always stay within me. And I wrote about it. It's also in my book, A Little Less Fear, available on Amazon and Amazon Kindle. And so I went to the Junior Olympics with my brother. My parents went to a wedding. They dropped us off. I remember this. It was at the Long Beach, oh, not Emporium. Why can't I think right now? The Jimmy Kim Junior Olympics in Long Beach. And so the convention center, there we go. And I remember that I had for the first time won 2 gold medals, one in forms and one in sparring. And I was so happy because my brother had kicked my ass for me to get these gold medals. And I was practicing with him day in, day out, hours and hours every day, pretty much. And I had fun. I had fun bonding like that with my brother and learning his skills and his determination. And I felt like I was on top of the world when when I was getting better or getting stronger or able to master a certain technique. And so at this tournament, I had got 2 gold medals, and I remember searching for my brother at the convention center. I was walking everywhere. I was like, "Where's my brother? I gotta show him. I got 2 gold medals. I got 2 gold medals." Like, wow, you know? And he was the only thing that was on my mind at that moment. It gets a little emotional here. So, when I couldn't find my brother, I saw some of our fellow students. And so I asked them, "Have you seen my brother?" And they said, yeah, he was taken to the hospital because he had a concussion, and he was kicked with fighting another black belt. He was kicked in the head, in the by the eye area, and he got knocked out. And I remember feeling so scared at the time. I thought, what? My brother doesn't get knocked out. He's got like 8 gold medals. My brother's never lost. He's never even gotten second place. How is he gonna get knocked out? And I didn't understand that. And then my parents were called, and I remember going to the hospital and seeing my brother, and he was so mopey, and his face was beat up, and it broke my heart. And I remember driving back with my family, my mom and dad, and my brother and I were in the back seat, and uh, and my brother started crying, and he said, "I lost," and he was crying so hard he was weeping. And I looked at him, and so I got my 2 gold medals and I put them around his neck. And I said, "No, you didn't." I said, "The only reason I got gold medals is because of you. You made me two gold two gold medals here. You made me into a champion." And he just had his head down. And I will never forget that because he'll always be my champion. So um I as difficult as it is talking about these memories and stuff, it's really the most beautiful thing. And one thing that I'm learning about grief is that grief is love. There's so much grief in losing somebody because there's so much love there. And that's one thing I talk a lot about when I'm a guest on podcasts. And one thing I talk a lot about on my podcast is love, because love is the common denominator that everybody shares. It's how we connect. It's the reason why we smile. It's the reason why we laugh. It's the reason why we cry. It's the reason why we keep going. Um, it's the reason for existing. And so, as my journey continued with my brother, we became a little distant. Actually, our 20s were kind of fun. I remember we partied a lot. My brother and I partied a lot in our 20s, and he was quite the ladies' man. And sometimes his ladies would flirt with me or whatever. I mean, whatever the case, my brother and I had fun. And he was off and on my best friend. Sometimes I was upset at him, but the next day I'd love him again. And we'd have our sibling rivalries. But for the most part, everything was love. And so in my 30s, I became really sick. And at the time when I was battling a rare genetic disease, I distanced myself from my family members, even my own mom and dad. I didn't want anybody to suffer with me or to cry with me or anything like that. And at the time, my brother was still writing, but he was met with alcoholism at one point in his life. And at this point in my life, I wasn't partying, I wasn't doing anything like that. And so I really didn't want to talk to him much in my 30s. I really didn't want to connect with him that much in my early 30s, nor with that many family members. So I became mostly close to friends at that time. Um, and then geez, it's so challenging talking about this stuff. Thanks for listening, everybody. And then 3 years ago, my brother was diagnosed with cancer. And by the time he had been diagnosed by cancer, I was finally starting to come over on the other side of from suffering from a disease to now thriving. And I had healed myself from a rare genetic disease, and using meditation and prayer and spirituality and trusting guides and trusting doctors and medications, and really going forward with a positive mindset and beyond a positive mindset, really just trusting in the unseen circumstances and really believing that everything was going to work out with me. I really, really worked hard and I was really working deeply and inward. And when my brother was diagnosed with cancer, he stopped everything. He stopped drinking, he stopped smoking cigarettes. He stopped right away, which actually was really, really beautiful and motivating for me, and almost shocking because I'd worked at a rehab for about 6 years. And I remembered that there were a lot of patients that even with cancer or AIDS or other diseases or hepatitis, if they got a disease, they didn't, most of them didn't stop drinking or smoking. They kept going. But not my brother. It's like he got the diagnosis and that day he stopped because he had a passion. And he told me, "Well, I got to stop because I'm a movie maker. I got movies to make." His mind was movies and motivating and making sure that people are going to be entertained. So when my brother was diagnosed with cancer, I felt devastated at the time. So devastated. I wasn't sure what his longevity would be. I wasn't sure um what how I was going to support him or how life was going to be with him going through this. But I stuck by his side, and this was the closest I got to him. The closest I got to my brother was the last 3 years, the closest I've ever been to him. And it was because I'm fortunate, and I don't want to say fortunate because I don't want to say that disease is fortunate, but fortunate to my life experience to have gone through over 40 surgeries, and I'd lost my voice for 2.5 years from the disease, and I had a feeding tube for 8 years. And having had that experience under my belt, I felt that I was here to motivate my brother as well to keep going and to be his support system now through what he was about to go through. So, um, one thing that kept motivating my brother was Pirates of the Caribbean, being a filmmaker, Captain Jack Sparrow. It was all over his bedroom, all the clothes that he wore, pirate clothes. I mean, pirate jewelry. He had his own incredible style. That's why I'm wearing his scarf right now. This was his, and wearing a lot of the jewelry that he gave me. He was really inspired by his own characters. And one thing that my brother didn't want people to know is that he had cancer or that he was in any type of pain or suffering. And I often wondered, and I would talk to him, why don't you talk to people? Why don't you tell them the truth? Tell them what you're going through. And he was like, well, because I'm going to be okay. He would say, I'm fine. It's just the battle. But I'm a warrior. He would say, I'm a warrior or I'm a fighter. He's a fourth degree black belt, you know? And so he kept kicking ass is the only way I can say it. He kept going. And I remember my brother was very boisterous. He had a very strong voice and he would make sure he was heard. And so one of the biggest losses that first occurred with him was losing his voice. He had cancer in his throat, and so he lost his voice box. And when he lost his voice box, I remember the first time visiting him at home, and it was so quiet, and I was so used to his boisterous energy. And when it was so quiet, I saw him in stillness for the first time ever. And I felt that a part of his spirit had been taken away. But that didn't stop him from writing. It didn't stop him from creating. Actually, he got more creative and he wrote even more. And his scripts became more and more powerful and more descriptive, and his character development was just incredible and impeccable. And so sometimes I think that losing his voice was, in a way, redirected into his writing. And that's why I feel his characters became even more authentic and even more real. And so I often wonder, why did I lose my voice for 2.5 years from this disease when I lost my voice? And I remember when my brother lost his voice permanently, because I didn't lose my voice box, obviously, I'm talking now, but I'd lost it for 2.5 years. And so when I think back, I think I'd lost my voice to be able to relate with my brother in the future who was going to be voiceless. And I can firsthand say that it's awful to lose your voice. It's awful. It's awful to not be able to create sound. It feels empty. It feels like an instrument that you once played can never be played again. The harmony is gone from a voice. You can't cry out loud anymore. You can't laugh out loud anymore. Can't sing. You can't hum. You can't sigh. Losing a voice is awful. But on the other side of awfulness is beauty. And that's what I learned from losing my voice. And that's what I see my brother learned as well, because he became more creative. He created more beauty in silence. So I remember the many times my brother had chemotherapy and was in the hospitals for surgeries and stuff. He didn't want anybody knowing. He didn't want any family members, no friends, don't tell anybody. He would actually get upset at me. So upset if I told anyone my brother's in the hospital, just don't. And I would ask him why, and he says, because I don't want people don't need to worry. They're gonna think something crazy. He would say, because I'm fine. I'm gonna be all right. He's like, it's just a little bump in the road, that's it. And he would persevere. Next thing I know, he's home, he's working out, he's lifting weights, he's writing another script, and it's just as if he was able to rechannel his energy into this positiveness, this force, this unseen force that exists within him would come out even after the biggest battle. And that just really put me in awe many times. Like, man, that's my brother, the warrior. He just keeps going. And so one thing that struck with me is here I kept saying, here's one thing that struck with me, one of the many things. I remember YouTubing Captain Jack Sparrow. Something about my brother's character came to my mind, and it was Johnny Depp visiting children in hospitals, cancer patients, children that were hospitalized, and all the joy that Captain Jack Sparrow was bringing to all of these kids that were sick. It was Captain Jack Sparrow's character that was bringing smiles and motivation and love. And I remember thinking, like, wow, my brother's character has reached billions of people all over the world, let alone dying children, let alone sick children, and people that are not sick. My brother's character is bringing so much love. Aside from that, my brother he was Captain Jack Sparrow. That personality is my brother. He's that drunken pirate, making people laugh, being mischievous. That was him. But when Captain Jack had cancer, who was going to visit Captain Jack? Who was going to uplift him and make him laugh? I found it ironic that Captain Jack was there to be there for so many people, but when the real Captain Jack was down, he didn't want anyone to know. And that was because deep down inside, my brother's energy is eternal. It's infinite. And it's going to keep going no matter what. And his character will stay alive no matter what. Oh my goodness. My brother. My brother is a beautiful soul. I saw so much love and determination with my brother, and he never gave up. There was nothing that was going to bring him down or take him down. Even during his final breaths, even during that final moment, those final moments I had with my brother, he still wanted to keep going. He was still determined. And 3 days before he passed, he told me, I will be home. It was through a text, but he said, I'll see you at home. And I believed him. I believed him, but there was also this, it was like 50% I believed him, but 50% I had this intuition like, oh, I don't know. I just don't know. I saw him, slowly kind of withering away slowly. I saw it, and there was a part of me that was in denial. Was he in denial? I don't know. I'll never know. But I know there was a part of me that was, because he always came back. My brother really lived for movies and for making people laugh, for being an entertainer, for being a best friend, being a brother, a son. He never left my mom's side. And my father and my brother bonded more than ever the last 3 years through music, guitar playing. Um, the most beautiful thing right now from this moment is all the people that are coming together right now. So many friends and all the relatives, everybody coming together because of his passing. It's like he's passing over, he's handing over his friends and the connections, and it's bringing me closer to who he was. I'm seeing aspects of my brother that I didn't know through the lenses of his friends, through their experiences, through their stories about him. I'm learning so much more about him than I ever knew. One of my brother's favorite songs, it's called The Gambler. The Gambler, Kenny Rogers. And anytime I hear that song, it will always remind me of him. When my brother passed, he passed pretty much in his sleep in a sedative state. And there's a verse in the song that says, "The best you can hope for is you will die in your sleep." And sometimes I wonder, do souls, do spirits, does unforeseen energy know how we're going to pass? Why are these songs or coincidences in alignment before we go? Do we know when we're going to cross over? Do we know when our time's up intuitively? Do we know these things? I have a hunch that a lot of us do. We're not fully aware of it, but we have some type of awareness that's not fully clear, but something leads us to a path to continue and to get as much done as we can to continue whatever legacy we want to leave here in this third dimensional human realm. I remember my brother as a comedian, and though not that many people knew that side of him, actually, a lot of people did. He was a really funny guy, um, and prankster, fun, and just really motivating. You got to keep going. You got to keep going no matter what. Do what you like. Don't worry about what people think. Just do you. That's pretty much all you can do. Do you, keep going, no matter what. Thanks for listening, everybody. My brother's services are May 1st in Culver City at Holy Cross Cemetery, where he will be in the same proximity as my grandparents, my maternal grandparents, along with some of my other cousins and relatives that are at this beautiful cemetery. I feel my brother ever so present right now. A lot of coincidences, a lot of signs that he's been giving me. And the body, our physical body, is impermanent, but our soul, our energy, our spirit is eternal. And I have been feeling the eternity of his infinite new energy. I hope to keep connecting to him in this new, beautiful way and knowing my brother in energetic form and knowing that I can connect with him this way and meditate and pray to him and feel him in ways that I didn't when he was in his body. I want to thank everybody for their love and support, all the friends and family that have been coming together through this difficult time and also a beautiful time. And I hope that everybody remembers my brother for the strong, energetic force character that he is, that he was, and how he will live on. I will carry the torch for him and all his future movies coming out, represent him the best that I can, I will honor him and love him for the rest of my life. And I will end this with a verse. Actually, I can end this with a letter that my brother gave me and a verse. So this was a letter that my brother gave me. It was a card. As you can see here, there's Captain Jack Sparrow on the cover of it. I love this card. It was really the last card that he gave me for Christmas. And it says, Merry Christmas to my brother, the best brother, the one and only, and any other brother would ever want. And that would be me. You inspire me to be strong, to follow your heart, and to love life and each and every moment there is. Thank you for always being there and for believing in me just as I will always be there for you and believe in you. With all the love in the world and in my heart, Ezekiel Martinez Jr. And those were the loving words from my big brother that I will hold dear to my heart, always and forever. As a lot of you know by now, after following me here, I'm a poet. I've been writing poetry since I was a kid, and I have been writing a lot of poems about my brother. So I will share one here. As I continue here, this was on April 9th, and this was the day that he passed, and this was while he was passing, I was writing. So what is all the fighting for if at the end the body tires? In this moment I take to feel your love ever present, as pure as I could have it. In this moment your blood is still pumping, your heart is still beating, and I know you are still hearing. What's left? It's your strong, vibrant, courageous, valiant spirit. Stay with me, brother, so that I'm always motivated and inspired by your brilliance. And and that's how that goes. So one of the verses to the song that he loved here, and I will sing it. It's from the song Gambler from Kenny Rogers. You gotta know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, know when to run. You never count your money. When you're sitting at the table, there'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done. You got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, know when to run. You never count your money. When you're sitting at the table, there'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done. Thank you so much, everybody. I love you.